The cutting wind of New York blew against the pristine windows of the limousine gliding down Fifth Avenue. Inside the vehicle, Austin Lancaster observed the city with the same coldness with which he analyzed his multimillion-dollar acquisitions. At 35, he was a jewelry magnate, the owner of Lancaster Diamonds, an empire built on perfection and luxury. But behind the imposing facade was a man obsessed with control and superiority. To Austin, life was a game where only the shrewdest emerged victorious. It was in this setting that his life's trajectory took an unexpected turn. On an ordinary late afternoon, as his chauffeur maneuvered the limousine through the bustling streets, something caught his attention. A young woman walked with calculated steps along the sidewalk, a guide dog at her side. Her simple dress and dark glasses contrasted sharply with the grandeur of the city around her. On impulse, Austin lowered the window. "You don't think you're playing with danger, walking around like that?" he said, his tone laced with sarcasm. The young woman stopped, turned toward the voice, and smiled faintly. "The real danger is seeing the world and finding nothing of value in it," she replied calmly. Austin remained silent for a second. That unexpected response unsettled him in a strange way. Before he could reply, the traffic light turned green, and the limousine moved forward. But something within him had already been stirred. In the following days, the incident was pushed to the back of his occupied mind. His company faced an unexpected challenge. Lancaster Diamonds was losing ground to a new competitor, one that was revolutionizing the jewelry industry with bold and innovative designs. Investors were growing restless, and Austin was growing impatient. Armand Keller, his right-hand man at the company, walked into the meeting room carrying stacks of reports. "Mr. Lancaster, Lumina Creations has launched a new collection that is dominating the market. We need something revolutionary to reclaim our position." Austin drummed his fingers on the table, deep in thought. "Then let's create something unparalleled," he declared. "I want an open competition. A global challenge for jewelry designers. We need to find the brightest mind in this industry, no matter the cost." Thus, the largest jewelry design competition of the decade was announced, attracting talent from all corners of the world. Among the contestants was a woman no one expected, Anne Jolie. Yes, the same woman Austin had underestimated on the street, and had inherited her talent from her grandfather, a renowned jeweler who had taught her from an early age the art of crafting jewelry with unique and original designs. When she was younger, she had perfect vision, but due to complications, she lost her sight at a young age. For Anne, it was an irreparable loss, a deep wound that made her question her own identity. Yet, despite the hardship, she never forgot what her grandfather had taught her. Her work reflected not only the technique he had passed down, but also a gift that seemed to have been transferred directly to her. Her refined touch and sensitivity created pieces that transcended mere vision. To her, jewelry was not just an object of luxury, it was a story told through gold and gemstones. The competition took place at the Lancaster Diamonds headquarters, an imposing hall surrounded by gleaming glass and marble sculptures. The participants had 4 hours to create a unique concept. And sitting alone at her station, ran her fingers over the materials, feeling their textures and shapes. Her mind saw what her eyes could not. When time was up, the judges began evaluating the pieces. Austin observed each design impassively, his expression unreadable. However, when his eyes landed on Anne's creation, something shifted. Before him was a necklace with an asymmetrical design, where a central diamond was embraced by delicate white gold filaments, forming a pattern that evoked the sensation of touch and memory. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. "Who designed this piece?" Austin asked, intrigued. Armand hesitated before responding. "Anne Jolie, sir." Austin gave a slight nod, analyzing the necklace once more, but before he could say anything, Armand continued, his tone more cautious. "There's just one thing, sir, about her. And has a special condition. She's visually impaired." Austin's eyes snapped up abruptly, his previously indifferent expression now overtaken by a mix of surprise and disbelief. His fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the table, as if he needed to steady himself to process the information. Without another word, he rose, crossed the grand hall, and approached the creator of the extraordinary piece. And remained seated, her posture serene, her fingers lightly resting on the table as if absorbing the environment through touch. "Do you really think you can compete in an industry where visual perfection is essential?" he challenged, attempting to regain his usual air of superiority. And lifted her head slightly, her lips curving into a calm smile. "Perfection isn't in the eyes but in what we feel when we touch something. My hands see what the eyes overlook." Her response resonated within Austin in a way he hadn't anticipated. For the first time in years, someone was making him question his own worldview. He recalled the day he had encountered her on the street and how he had never imagined seeing her again, let alone as the winner of his own competition. The thought unsettled him more than he cared to admit. How could someone without sight create something so magnificent? To Austin, the jewelry world was one where visual perception was everything. Every detail, every sparkle, every subtle hue, all depended on the trained eyes of the designer. Yet, here was Anne proving him wrong. The technical judges could not ignore the masterpiece she had presented. The entire hall fell into silence as her piece was displayed, a mixture of awe and disbelief hanging in the air. The delicacy of the details, the harmony of the elements, the impeccable sophistication, everyone present knew that this piece was a true work of art. Even Austin, reluctant as he was, couldn't deny it, and was the winner of the competition. He tried to rationalize what had happened, but something inside him felt unsettled. Anne's words still echoed in his mind. Her talent was beyond technique, it was intuition, a connection he couldn't fully comprehend. As much as he resisted, he couldn't deny her keen insight and strength. Time passed, and despite his reservations, Austin hired Anne. But as they worked together, he began to see her in a new light. Her creativity was an enigma, a fascinating puzzle, and her courage stirred something inside him. Every day, Anne delivered flawless, meticulous, and innovative work. For her, being there was the fulfillment of a dream, a tribute to her grandfather, who had taught her everything about the art of jewelry making. Gradually, she became more comfortable in her role, gaining confidence and earning the admiration and respect of those around her. Her sincerity and determination brought a fresh energy to the Lancaster Diamonds atelier. Though some still harbored quiet doubts about her abilities due to her condition, and saw it as an opportunity to educate and inspire. To her, her blindness was not a limitation but a different way of perceiving the world. Austin, who had always maintained a rigid and authoritative demeanor, began to notice these subtle changes. At first, he tried to ignore them, but it was impossible not to see the way Anne won people over simply by being herself. What had once been irritation turned into a silent admiration. He caught himself watching her more than he should, intrigued not only by her talent but also by the strength and wisdom she carried. As the days passed, the walls he had built over the years began to crumble. For the first time, Austin felt that someone was slowly changing the way he saw the world. And without realizing it, he was allowing it to happen. That night, Anne had stayed late in the atelier, focused on the final details of the upcoming collection. The room was quiet, bathed in a soft light that illuminated her workstation, where her hands moved delicately over the pieces, ensuring everything was perfect. Across the building, in his office, Austin noticed her presence. He watched her for a moment through the glass wall, observing the way she worked with patience and precision. Something inside him urged him to get up and go to her. As he entered the atelier, Anne lifted her head, sensing his presence. "Working late?" Austin asked, crossing his arms as he leaned against the table beside her. "Yes," she replied with a small smile. "I want to make sure every piece is perfect before the launch. Each piece of jewelry has its own story, and I want them to tell the best one possible." He observed the subtle glow on her face, the passion evident in her voice. For the first time, he realized that her determination went beyond skill, it was love for what she did. "You really are fascinating, Anne," he said, his tone softer than usual. She raised an eyebrow, surprised. "And are you feeling all right, Austin? I never thought I'd hear that from you," she teased. He chuckled, shaking his head. "I was thinking." He hesitated. "The workday is over. What do you think about going out to dinner?" And hesitated for a moment. The invitation caught her off guard, but something in his voice made her realize that this wasn't just a casual dinner.